Welcome to IMC Live, everybody. Like Alan shared, this is the interactive webinar series hosted by the Industrial Marketing Collective. And yeah, we're here to help you connect with your peers, sharpen your skills, and drive results in your work. For those of you who don't know me, I am Peyton Warren, the marketing director at Gorilla 76, the industrial marketing agency, and I am one of your IMC Live hosts. A little bugaboo that we all deal with in the manufacturing space, that I'm sure you guys have heard of, but I'm just gonna, you know, pose the question and in for the chat. What do you think is the manufacturing industry's like biggest problem? And I would, I'm guessing that folks are going to drop um, the topic of what we're going to talk about today because one, we've sent a few promos about it and stuff, but I am curious to just hear what you guys think about that. So if you have some ideas, go ahead and chat away. Oh, let some more folks in the room here.
Yeah. We have skilled labor, finding workers, expertise, retiring, and no retention. I'm seeing a theme here. Maybe some people read the email about what the show's about today.
Yes. So if you said anything related to its workforce, ding, 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 you're a winner. Hiring and retention is a huge, huge problem. We hear about it all the time. If you listen to the Manufacturing Executive podcast with Joe Sullivan, or any of the Making Chips shows, like they're talking about it constantly. All of the manufacturing leaders are just like, this is the problem we're trying to figure out how to solve. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we dive into that meaty problem and insert ourselves, the marketer, as part of the solution, one more quick reminder that the Industrial Marketing Summit is coming up March 3rd through 5th in 2026. So that's just 12 days from now, from the time of this recording. And only you, put on my Smokey the Bear hat, can prevent FOMO. So the opening keynote is going to be by the notable Rand Fishkin, the closing keynote by the incredible Dale Bertrand. There's going to be three in-depth workshops from Guerrilla, True Marketing, and Fire and Spark. There's ample time to mix and mingle and network, and we're just really looking forward to all of it. And Alan and Peyton, myself, we're going to be there in the flesh, so don't miss out. And if you do have to miss it for any reason, I know we have some folks in the group who are going to Con Expo, that darn conference that happens or trade show happens once every 3 years. So if you do have to miss it, you can still access the keynotes and the 16 practical sessions with the digital pass. So I'll just leave it there. Learn more about that and more at industrialmarketingsummit.com. So now let's buckle in and solve the manufacturing sector's biggest problem in the next 30 minutes.
No problem.
So, allow me to introduce you to today's problem solvers. Wes, Ray. We have Wes Temple, Ray Reeder. Thank you so much for joining us. Say hello.
Hey guys, it's great to be here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. And
Yeah.
Wes.
Yeah, you're both strategists here at Gorilla, and seeing as it's your first time on the show, do y'all just mind sharing a little bit of your backstories? Like, how did you end up working with manufacturers at Gorilla 76? And Wes, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Peyton, I think this is my second time.
Oh
I
my
think I
goodness,
was a
I'm so
guest, maybe.
sorry.
I don't know. It's okay. I totally forgive you. So, for everyone that I haven't met or haven't talked to, like Peyton said, my name is Wes Temple. I'm a strategist here at Grill 76, coming up on my 1 year point actually, which is super exciting. But before this, I've worked kind of across the gamut in B2B. So I was at an agency for a time. I worked as a director of marketing at a commercial construction company that worked across the country doing different work. And so, really, what's been awesome and kind of why we're here talking about hiring and retention is, and we'll obviously get into it, but Ray and I have been working on doing sort of a roadmap, very similar to our marketing roadmap that we do for clients that really puts some actual strategy to helping hiring and retention for manufacturers. Because at the end of the day, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's hiring and retention, it's just strategy at the end of the day. And a lot of the things that actually help with marketing, there's a reason it's called recruitment marketing, is doing a lot of the same kind of blocking and tackling that we're doing in the marketing silo, so to say.
It's all the same thing. It's all one story, as they say. That's great. Ray, tell us a little bit about you. You haven't even been at Gorilla too long. I warned you when we met for the first time that I'd be
You
pulling
did,
you
yeah.
on this show pretty quickly.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Ray Reeder. I'm Gorilla's newest strategist. I think Wes did the math yesterday, 38 days today with Gorilla. So, but I bring 5 years of in-house B2B manufacturing, specifically precision machining, marketing. So I spent the last 5 years in-house in Southeast Wisconsin for a family business, 3 generations, helping them establish a foundational marketing strategy that ultimately translated directly into the recruitment, marketing, and retention. So, help build a lot of framework for their human resources and talent acquisition personnel. Just trying to get marketing a seat at the table when it comes to employer branding and just general brand awareness and foundation.
Fantastic. So we as marketers are always usually pretty concerned about the customer and maybe less so concerned about anything else. So why is that bad? Why do we need to broaden our interests here? Wes, I ask you first.
Okay, you asked me first. So I kind of alluded to it already with my little bit of a long-winded introduction, but at the end of the day, I think that as marketers, and this even plays a little bit into kind of the workshop I'm doing at IMS, but as marketers, I think that it's really easy for us, especially in a more antiquated industry, to just get hyper-focused in our silo of marketing, when in reality, as marketers, we're touching a lot of different aspects within this whole go-to-market function. And it is of my firm belief that hiring and retention also falls within that bucket.
And how does that affect like your career and your job, you think, selfishly?
I mean, I I think when we look at it as far as my job and working at the agency selfishly, um, I think it's important as a marketing agency, especially when your whole value proposition is providing strategic guidance to, again, not just funnel yourself and silo yourself. And so looking at how can I apply the same kind of skill set and the deliverables that I'm doing for my clients across the board. Because the more that strategically we touch, as far as in the business, the more of a partner we become with them as opposed to just a vendor, which ultimately we want to move out of, right?
Yeah, and I think like the how that applies to in-house too is like we're always talking about why it's so important that like how do I get marketing a seat at the table? How do I get marketing a seat at the table? Well, what we just heard from Katie Parlin like a couple weeks ago about the product launch framework that she developed and what was the lesson from that conversation? Katie inserted herself with the product development process and she pulled a chair up into that conversation. And I think this is the same thing where like Wes, you're saying like it's all strategy. Like there's just a lot of value that marketing can bring. And so if we insert ourselves into the conversation, we're not trying to make things more complicated, but we're actually just trying to say, hey, here's the skill set that I have. And you might not have thought that this is how it could be applied. Well, how does that like what does that do for the perception, like your colleague's perception of you or your colleague's perception of marketing? Like it elevates it in just like an incredible way. And yeah, it gets you plugged in, gets you involved in different parts of the business. Which, again, like Wes said, it like people start to view you more as that partner, more as like a, you know, just someone that they can turn to and ask for help, seek advice from, collaborate with, which is really like the dream, I think, for a lot of marketers, instead of
Yeah.
just getting a phone call last minute and saying, oh, hey, I need a brochure about this.
Yep.
Like, we don't mind doing the brochures. I think a lot of us think that some of that's kind of fun and there's like a creative element to that, but we want to be able to influence um, the message and the why,
Yeah.
right? Why are we doing it?
And it's also, adding rungs to your own career ladder to a certain extent, right? We were talking about how an increasing amount of CEOs were formerly either COOs or CMOs. So, you have to prove that you're thinking outside of your narrow spot in the business currently to show that you can expand from there. So Ray, on that point, you mentioned in your previous roles that you worked in-house and you were doing like 60% of your job in recruitment and retention. So what did that teach you as a young marketer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate where my human resources team was super collaborative with marketing to begin with. And same with our management and leadership. They were the ones really advocating for marketing to have that seat at the table when it came to uh, marketing's efforts within the recruitment strategy. So I think, again, I was fortunate where I was in the position that the collaboration was already there and the foundation was there to help support it. It was, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think it'd be helpful for folks to know a little bit of the context of what was happening at the manufacturer where you were working, Reader Precision, right?
Sure.
Just because, like, you guys were going through a lot of change too,
Yep.
and like acquisitions, merger, like just a little bit of
Yep.
that context,
Sure.
I think would be
Yeah.
really helpful for folks.
Yeah, when I joined the team in September of 2020 as just a marketing intern, we were a team of 45. By 2025, this past July, I think we were 145 strong. So that team member growth ultimately stemmed from, yes, acquisition, but a lot of uh, direction and just strategic direction from our leadership to really have marketing and human resources use the brand strategy that we had in place from our go to market strategy and couple that into a recruitment strategy. So HR really bought into our initiative of you have a brand for your go to market business development. Couple that with kind of like what Wes is saying, you have the foundation there, couple that with who you want to be as an employer of choice. So we definitely worked with our intern because you got to build it internally too. So there was a lot of buy-in with team members being able to help us capture the content that we needed for the success stories in-house. We had families that had dads and daughters in the same building at the same time, and we were able to capture some of those family aspects and show the good-hearted feeling of what working for a family business is like. And I think a lot of that content helped us show our presence in the community too, through other community engagement initiatives. So yeah, we went through quite a few over the last 5 years, a lot of change. So we went through an acquisition and then a complete consolidation from two operation entities into one 130,000 square foot facility. So merging two cultures too, from legacy brands from the 1980s till today was it was a challenge, but it was rewarding to see what was reaped in the end.
Awesome. Yeah. Could you dig into a bit more about what the day-to-day looked like how marketing
Yeah,
supported that recruitment and what your job was?
absolutely. So there was a couple different elements for sure. A lot of our community engagement came from events within our K through 12 connections that we had in our local school districts. So we partnered with CT coordinators, which are career and technical education coordinators, that helped us align students to the career pathways within manufacturing and other industries, even if it was outside of manufacturing, to get them experienced while they're in middle school and high school with skilled trades. And I think that was really important, especially as I think even in the chat, I'm seeing some familiar themes of the legacy employees that have that knowledge that are about to retire, making sure that legacy knowledge gets passed down to the next generation. We thought that was incredibly important because you can have this next gen coming in, but without that legacy knowledge, especially for some of the manufacturing expertise that's been built over the last 25, 30, 40 years, that knowledge could just disappear if it's not handed off before they exit stage right. So we thought that was extremely important too, and also upskilling internally from a retention standpoint. So ensuring that legacy knowledge was also being reinstilled in our current workforce. So we have at the time, like when I first started, I would say 75% of our employees were above the age 45 at the time. Now, I would say it's probably reversed. I think we have between 20 and 35 being in that 75 percentile. And I think that what was important was that generation that was going to be exiting stage right wanted to make sure that legacy knowledge was handed down. So it was a collaborative engagement in our workforce, but it just had to be facilitated from some of our front office expertise from the strategic side of things. So, because the knowledge is there, it just needs to get passed down from generation to generation before it just kind of goes into the abyss.
And how did marketing help pass that knowledge on? Were you like setting up mentorship programs? Were you having the older get people write like blogs, for lack of a better term, to pass down? What did that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. It was helping a lot with the strategy of the standard operating procedures. So making sure that these mentors had the foundation in place to be able to pass that knowledge on. So basically kind of like not a buddy system, but essentially we helped, marketing helped HR kind of conduct some of these standard operating procedure discoveries to ensure that just the messaging and the positioning was there from the start foundationally. Because it all comes
Yeah.
down to culture too. Like your external brand perception is important, but also internal culture is just as important. Like it's your own internal marketing if you think about it.
For sure. And we were talking about this a little bit with like a few different manufacturers and industrial companies that we work with right now. Because a thing that's come up a few times that between Wes and yourself, Ray, is like y'all have talked about how like your go-to-market strategy can apply like in both places. And so we all have some sort of, you know, company tagline or something like just like a thing that we want. If someone thinks about, gorilla, what do we want them to think? If someone thinks about, reader precision, what do we want them to think? And the one company that I always love to reference when it comes to like culture is MacTech. And I know I've brought them up on this show quite a bit, but Luke Wittenbreaker, absolutely wonderful. I've had the pleasure of working with him for several years, and he's the director of sales and marketing there. And MacTech is a portable machining company, and they, design and make equipment for portable machining. But then they also service and they use that same equipment when they go out in the field and they contract to do these repairs and things like that. And one of the taglines that they use in their messaging is like great machines, great machinists. And, so it's like you're thinking through, like, okay, what does that really mean to the customer? Great machine, great machinist. And then asking that same question, but saying, okay, what does that mean for the employee? And at MacTech, just to like drill into this example a little bit more, it's like, okay, so for the customer, we're promising them a great machine that was designed and developed and maintained by a machinist that truly understands it. So you know that you're getting the product that you wanted and that's actually going to work and do the job for you. It's a workhorse machine. And you're not going to get it on site and be like, oh, shoot, I didn't even need this. I needed something else because the salesperson was a former machinist themselves. And now they're in operations with the business and they help with project development. So you're getting like that experience. Well, with the employee, what does it mean? It means that your leadership, so you're being hired as a new machinist off the street. You used to be a farm kid and you just decided, I want to be in portable machining. I want to work with offshore companies or I want to work in shipbuilding. Great. You're going to have great machinists that mentor you and train you how to use these machines. And so you just see how like, okay, there's that through line of and how it bolsters the brand in just this incredible way. And I feel like MacTech is just a lived example that I've been able to see. And I would recommend folks follow them and reach out to Luke too to talk more about that. But we had a few other clients that came to mind too. And I don't know, Alan, if you want to talk a little bit about Cordy. I mean, this doesn't have to be like anything wild, right? It can be something as simple as employee owned.
Yeah, I mean, with them, we had a lot of good success running Facebook campaigns that were just trying to attract candidates, and being able to say that they were employee owned and what it is like to work with Cordy was really all we had to do. And at that point, the campaign ran itself. We didn't have to do any redo ads or anything. The thing I think is still running.
Hmm.
So if you just say what's true about your company, sometimes you don't have to do a lot of extra work.
As long as the culture is being lived and
As
it's
long as it's,
integrated throughout. So
yeah,
it's like, Ray, like, it's one thing to say, okay, we're a family-owned company, and we care about our people and we care about the generational knowledge, right? But then if you don't have the action inside your company that's showcasing, like, we actually want to retain this institutional knowledge and we want to pass that down, and we are making effort to do that, then it's just like false advertising, right?
100%. 100%. Like you gotta you got to act on what you're preaching. Like you got to make sure you're not just putting it out there. Oh, we do this, we do that. You really got to make sure, because again, your internal employees are going to know whether or not you're actually doing that. So you got to practice what you preach. And I think it was important that um, we made sure we were doing those things. Obviously, before you even go to market with that to any candidates or applicants coming to you for specific roles, but it really comes down to that internal culture. You really got to have the buy-in from your team before you can even go external with it. And because it took a while to get team members on board, especially on the production side of things, comfortable with being able to showcase the work they were doing. Obviously, some people are camera shy. They're really proud about the work they do. They don't want the exposure. But at the end of the day, I mean, like that stuff has to be shown, because if you want to attract that next talent, or just be able to showcase that work, you got to have the content for it, and people should be proud of the work that they do, or even if it's unrelated to actual production work, but some of the initiatives. If you have really great philanthropy in house, if you have different just upskilling initiatives that are being done in house, it's really important to highlight those kinds of things.
Hmm. And I'm just gonna, you know, pose this question to the group. If anyone that's here joining us live has anything um, that they're like, okay, this is how we've applied it to yourself, I would love to hear about it today. If you're willing, just drop us a note in the chat, and we'll gladly bring you up to tell a little bit how you've kind of bridged that gap between, like, okay, this is what we talked about with customers. This is how we talk about it with our uh, employee prospects and things like that. Uh, but I want to turn the mic to Wes because I think, like, all of this is really great, but I do think that a lot of folks are still like, okay, so great, this sounds awesome, but, like, how do I even start adapting that go-to-market strategy from the business development side to the employee side? So, like, say you just got off a phone call with your CEO, right? And they're like, "Hey, we need to figure this out. Um, get going, Wes." What's like your first step? Like, where are you starting? Um, square one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think um, because at its foundation, it really is just strategy. You have to kind of apply a similar process to it that you would for marketing and sales. And so any good strategy is going to always start with getting a really robust and clear and honest answer of where you're at currently. And so doing a lot of research on things that pertain to your hiring and retention. So, what does our Glassdoor look like? What do our employee surveys, if you're doing them already, what do those look like? What do your Google reviews look like? All of those different things, your online presence, just getting a really good understanding of this is where I feel like we actually are. And then from there, taking that information and moving into a conversation with your hiring team, right? With your HR team. So coming prepared with very specific questions based on the research that you're doing, and having a conversation about, okay, what's the brass tacks of the real issues that we're trying to solve, that we're seeing? Is it that we're unable to get in a lot of applicants for these evergreen roles that we're consistently hiring for? Is it that we have a drop off of employees after their 180-day mark? Is it that overall company culture might have taken a hit because of something like layoffs or pay freezes or 401k freezes, all these different things? So you want to get a really good understanding of what the issues are. And I think from there, you work backwards, just like a marketing strategy. So you think about, okay, if I am trying to, for example, make my company the employer of choice in their recruited and kind of local market. Well, what does it actually look like to solve that? And doing some real thinking about the tactics that would actually be associated with that. And I think you just kind of go through your entire list of your goals or your challenges. Strategically, I always like to keep it between three and five. I always kind of joke and say like the core four because you absolutely have to have focus. And then just building that entire strategy out and then having the conversation with your hiring team, your HR team again to follow up and say, strategically, this is what I think makes the most sense based on our conversation. And just having the level set of, am I off base? Am I correct? Does this sound right? And then from there, just beginning to execute, beginning to try to make some of those, you know, uh, in, internal branding playbooks, for example, trying to build those relationships with K through 12 in your local area and begin to develop a program with them, like actually beginning to do the work. And I think measuring it and adjusting it as you go.
Hmm. The things that come to mind here is like, so it's like I feel like what where you started is like, okay, I want to start doing some like social listening in a way. So like the glass door. Um, and to me that's very akin to like the customer research side of things. So you're like, okay, what are my employees saying about me? What are like how do folks actually feel? Do we have any gaps that need to get filled? That's not necessarily marketing's job to fix those things, but it's your job, just like in a customer interview, to be curious, listen, identify those trends, and share them with the broader team internally, so that folks can say, "Oh yeah, wow, I didn't realize that. That actually is really important. We didn't know we should highlight that so much." Things there. Wes, I just saw you unmute. I'll let you jump back in.
Yeah, no problem. I also think it's really important when you're trying to get a seat at the table, whether that's sales or hiring or any position in your organization. I think that you have to come over prepared. You have to come like essentially with a lot of information showing that you understand their world. I think if you go into a conversation with someone who's an HR department and you haven't done your foundational work of understanding where things are at, they're not going to take you serious. And they're not going to really feel like it's a valid use of their time if you're asking them very boilerplate questions that could be answered by taking 10 minutes out of your time to look online and to do actual research as well.
Mhm. I know one of the places I really like to audit whenever we're working with a manufacturer in like the employer branding or employer like employee retention side of things, is like just okay, what touch points do we have with our prospects? Our the folks that we're trying to hire. Uh, I think that so many times we marketers don't have any sort of input on what's on the careers page. We're just like, oh, we built the page. Like you just created like the vessel, but you didn't actually help them populate it with the message and pull in those like through lines from that go to market. So like that's like one spot where you're like, okay, so as I'm like going through and like you're auditing the different touch points, like how do folks convert to become an opportunity with you? It's like, okay, so they've come to your careers page. They've read that as the landing page for their experience. They've decided after they've visited that page that they want to learn more, raise their hand, talk to HR, talk to your people team. Great. What's the first email they get? What does that look like? Have you as the marketer like looked at that at all and said, "Oh, great." Like, or is it just literally the canned email that comes from like the applicant tracking software that's just like, "Thank you for your application. Period. Someone will be in touch." Like, is that an opportunity to further your brand? I think all the time about the 404 page from Fullerton Tool, how like that they didn't even sleep on that page when they redid their website. Like the 404, if you end up there, which they hope you never do, but if you do, they're using it as a touch point to engage with you and further who they are. So it's like each email that you send, right? What's it say? what words you're using, why. That's another place that marketing can get involved along the way. Same thing with like the follow-ups that happen after an interview or, just, and I'm not saying you have to force your hand and, dictate the talking points at every step of the way, but just even sitting down with the people team and having a conversation about that might get them to think about it a little bit differently too, um,
We were
which could be huge.
in the chat, people were mentioning about, hiring in small towns and how that can be different from big cities. And especially when it comes to the small towns, people talk about their experience in the job hunt. And if you give a bad experience to one person, you might not get the next one.
hmm Word of mouth is huge. It's huge, which is why like that whole glass door strategy, just like you're trying to get reviews. Like, are you asking your current employees to go? Gorilla does this internally. We're known as a great place to work. And why? It's like, it is a great place to work. I'm not going to lie about that. But like, John Franco, our founder, he asks folks after they've been here for a certain period of time, like, hey, I want your real, like, you don't have to, no pressure, but just like reminding folks that if you haven't done this, this is something we love to see, and that it continues to be recent because it's constantly being updated with new feedback that's coming in, which then like let's pull this all around to like AI and answer engines. Like answer engines, LLMs, they're gonna pull that information in when someone's saying, "I'm looking for a place to work too." And they're crawling Glassdoor, they're crawling the Facebook groups, they're crawling Reddit threads. All of it comes back around.
Yeah. Speaking of coming back around, I've got a kind of random question for Wes and Ray and maybe even the wider group. But you're talking about the importance of learning the fundamentals, the world of HR. In your all's experience, what's something that every marketer should know about HR that they probably don't?
Mm. I love that question.
Feel like I should play the Jeopardy music now.
We'll insert it in post.
I think
Uh,
my biggest takeaway is they want the same results as a marketer. I mean, from a different angle, like from marketing, you want the lead gen, you want the qualified uh, sources coming from the general go-to-market strategy. They want the same thing from candidates and applicants. So it's almost a similar symbiotic relationship where they are wanting the same thing just in a different way. Their customers are employees. They need the workforce in order for the company to be able to produce the products, the services, et cetera, that they need to keep production running. So it's almost the same mentality, I guess, just in a different not industry, but just different department.
Yeah, we all want the same things at the end of the day.
Wes, any other thoughts from you?
Man, I don't know. I feel like Ray really nailed it, and we talked about it a lot. I think really for me, it's just that there are so many similarities in how you can apply marketing strategy and marketing execution to hiring and retention and HR as well. There's a lot of overlap. The same skills that you're using to develop a landing page for a paid media campaign can be used to make an evergreen specific, a role specific landing page for hiring as well. And so I don't think it needs to be something that's super intimidating or something that you kind of feel like a fish out of water, when in reality, I think you can right now be a lot more useful in that arena than you think you are.
Yeah, and we had a couple comments in the chat that feel pretty relevant here. Elise said that they actually want our help, and Karen mentioned that they might not understand just how much impact the HR has within a company. Karen, do you want to come on and talk about that a bit more?
Sure. A long time ago, I spent 5 years in HR doing employee communication. I learned so much working with them. But I don't, a lot of times when I talk to, I always go right to the HR person and talk to them. But I just had a conversation with them yesterday. but I don't think they understand that everything they do represents the company, and can have this policy that really hurts a certain group of employees, and that totally turns their impression of the culture just on something simple. Or it could have been a conversation, or maybe not answering their question or whatever. And so I think it's important to let them know that they are definitely the brand of the company as well, in their policies and what they do and how they treat employees. But I'm so grateful for this topic today, because we've been doing a lot of little things we've been doing videos and social posts and whatever to get, because we have a couple plants that are really troublesome plants with employees. And I've just had this conversation with a couple of people yesterday. We're putting a Band-Aid on this. We need to add employment retention to our strategic plans, because these companies are all 100 years old. And how do we get to the next 10, 15, 25 years with these employees who we desperately need to build our products? So that's where I'm at. I'm like, we've done a lot of little tactics, but now I need to go big picture. So that's where I'm like, Ray, we have a precision company that could really use some help from you. But I'm really interested in, how do we strategically plan for the future of these employees? And I literally said to our business development manager yesterday, I'm like, I don't know that I'm the right person to be asking these questions, but I don't think anyone else is. So I'm a
And
marketing person asking these things.
yeah, and I think like just your background and how you came and like into marketing and the journey that you've taken, where you worked in HR previously and internal communications, is so valuable there, because like you just have that perspective of how like meaningful internal communication is, when especially when it's done well, and how much people appreciate that. Um, yeah, but I think like I have also often had like imposter syndrome, where you're just like, okay, I shouldn't be asking this question. Like, I'm not on the people team here. I'm just like, but sometimes it's just facilitating. Sometimes it's literally just scheduling that workshop, getting the people in the room. Like you said, this is big picture. This might not happen this week, but you say, hey, and I keep thinking about Katie. It's like we're going to put something on the calendar next quarter, and I'm going to get the big players in the room, business development, leadership, operations, HR, get them all in the room. Let's have a conversation about it. Let me facilitate the workshop. Let's talk about our ICP for each role that we're really looking for. And maybe you're just the one that starts the conversation, and then it does peel off of you, and you're not the one who necessarily has to carry it all forward.
Yeah.
But just to get your company thinking about that. And then they're building resources that then you can use to help them. Oof, change like, that would change things a lot. I do want to ask, like, if anyone has had experience specifically in those smaller markets, with the community development. Like the things that come to mind for me are like, there's a reason why some companies will sponsor that, the air conditioning company or whatever, they sponsor the little league team. It's like your name's on the scoreboard at the high school, like stuff like that. Has anyone had any experience doing brand awareness plays like that in your community? And has anyone
I'd love to
seen
answer that.
impact?
I'd love to
Elise?
contribute to that. Yeah. Um, so when I started at the company, so for context, we're majority regional, Ohio and Kentucky. And the from a CBT recruitment perspective, the mentality of HR was, I would say, very outdated, and helping them understand that, and I'm going to give a really like broad example, but like the the old white bald guy, at the local college or the local recruitment experience is not a good representation of who we are as a brand. But he also doesn't really understand who he's recruiting, even though there's a job description, right? And the ways I think leveraging well, I'll stop there on that point. So sorry. So from a regional perspective, we basically have each of our regions kind of have some level of ownership over what they want to do at a local level, because that, even, 100 miles from here, totally different audience, totally different community, right? So allowing those locations to really participate and contribute to what does that look like, and how that area differs. We've definitely done you know, um, the the banner at the baseball game type of thing, and that does have an impact. But I think at the local level, really explaining ways that how much you contribute to the community as an organization and how much you're pouring into the community as an organization, um, to the point before, like really great training, right? A clear progression of where these people can go, that it's not you get there and you have your orientation day and then it's like, okay, bye. And then you wonder why people leave.
Yeah, be here tomorrow at.
You're right, exactly. But just being really clear with them what their opportunity is, and the word of mouth, 100%. Like that bad experience goes so much farther, unfortunately, than a good one.
Hmm. I know we're running at time here. I'll just pull a few notes from the chat. The chat's been a lot to keep up with for me today, so thank you all for contributing there. But folks, we're talking about just like in terms of platforms and like recruitment. Like Elise started to mention, it's like we need to think about like where are we actually recruiting these sometimes hourly employees from. So you need to think about your channels, and LinkedIn might not be your best channel. Some other channels that folks have mentioned in the chat. Uh, Facebook has been very popular. Facebook groups have come up a few times. Community Facebook pages have come up a few times. And then, just your good old meta ads too are an avenue that you guys can consider. So excited to hear more of what's been working for everyone. Um, this was an absolutely awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming, folks. And special shout out to our guests here, Wes and Ray. Any last thoughts before we wrap up from you two?
I don't think so. Thank you everyone for contributing and being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And it was a really good conversation. I'm glad to see a lot of us are thinking along the same lines and on how important this topic is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, besides showing up at the Industrial Marketing Summit in a few weeks, Wes and Ray will also be there. So Gorilla is going to show up in force. So you can meet them there, continue this conversation there. But I know the two of them are on LinkedIn and also in the Industrial Marketing Collective. So you guys can keep up with them in that place. So our next IMC Live is going to be on March 4th, which is actually a Wednesday. And it's going to happen at 3:30 in the afternoon, so we can make it happen while we're all at the summit. So that's just how the scheduling worked out this time. We're going to be unpacking our instant takeaways from the keynote and from the first full day of session. So if you're in Austin, um, you know, come stop by. I'll have a little cocktail and a cocktail table and a microphone, and we can just do a little round robin there. And if you're going to be elsewhere, you can just register the same as you always do and join us here in the Zoom room. So for the folks in the room, we really love seeing you, and we will see you next time. And for the folks listening, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
See you in Austin.
Bye.